it's real pain working for no money, man.
Yeah.
That's that's rough. A lot of what I'm building right now is like front loading so that I can sell it eventually, and then
Hmm.
the frustration or the hope is that there will be a market for it once I get it built.
That's the tough part.
But
And
who
it's
knows,
like,
right? It's like
yeah,
could be a exercise in. I think I can get the book written in 4.5 months. I'm 1 month in. I have
yeah,
30 pages. The goal is to do 10 pages a week for 18 weeks. That's about 4.5 months.
yeah,
And so I think I can get the book out in 4.5 months, um, at least written, and then do the editing process and stuff. Maybe 6 months to it being for sure ready to
sure.
go. Um, so, and then the trick will be selling it, and the whole, I guess, exercise of me trying to figure social media out right now is to make a bunch of the mistakes as early as possible, and then
Right. Fail
hopefully figure out a
fast,
way to
fail
sell
forward.
something, you know.
Makes sense.
So, but yeah, I'm working like a crazy person. Usually like 6 a.m. to 10 or 11 p.m. and just I take a break around noon, and then I take a break around usually around 4 o'clock. But
Yeah.
today I'm here, like, so sometimes the 4 o'clock break doesn't happen.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you making the time work. 'Cause I've been trying to I try to fit stuff in, and it gets tough because
Yeah,
it's like not only am I trying to balance like day job and keeping that up, but
right,
also the side business, keeping that up, and then not letting my marriage fall apart in the middle of it, and making sure I
right.
have enough
Taking
time for
care of your
Elodie and
kid and all
Zoe. And
that stuff. Yeah, those
like,
are
yeah,
huge.
this week I had an hour-long meeting with Zoe and her teachers, talking through stuff for her school and,
Yeah,
you know, doing this. And then yesterday went to whiskey church. And so it's like,
there you go.
it's been something every night. We met with some friends Tuesday night. So it's been something every day, which is kind of how I like it. Um, I like a thing every day.
Yeah, yeah,
This
yeah,
week it's
yeah.
been like two or three things every day. So, but it's fun. It's good.
Yeah, I've been enjoying I think I'm gonna do more of the podcasting. Um,
Yeah.
I want to have Miss Robbie on
Hmm.
to talk about small business, and I want to have Ashley on because I'm writing a chapter on psychology and money,
Yep.
and so I want to have her on. So there's going to be at least one chapter on entrepreneurship and basically unconventional ways of making money.
Hmm.
Um, I'm a little bit stuck actually, and I'm stoked that I'm talking to you today because the next part that I have to write on is I've already written the chapter on what is money. I've written the
Right.
chapter on what you use money for, and I'm in the chapter right now on all the different things that you can use for money and what uses they're good for and what uses they're not good for. Um, and I just uh, have written in just the title for real estate. That's all
Okay.
I have so far.
Enough said.
Yeah,
Just
yeah, it's like
real estate.
real
Enough
estate.
said.
And so how do I, in maybe a like a 6 paragraph chapter or 7 paragraph chapter, try to encapsulate what real estate is, what it's good for, what it's not good for. And you know more about real estate than I do, so I'm kind of interested. Obviously, I'm going to be doing a
Yeah,
lot of
I
research
mean,
on it, but
the problem is it's so vast, and the way that people use real
right,
estate is as vast as the way that people use money.
yeah,
It's as vast as the way people build businesses, right? Like some people build businesses in order to take a loss, in order to
right,
deal with their other
right,
stuff in life, or they build a business for a passion project and it's not designed to make money, or but I think real estate, buying and holding real estate, I think, is about saving money and sheltering it from inflation. I think you can build a real estate business, which people think about as investing, but it's
It's
not.
not. Yeah.
It's actually a business that you built. It just happens to be a real estate focused business that you built.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, real estate can be on the agent side where you're like actually like selling other people's
Selling
houses and
houses and
making a
making
commission on
commission.
that, which is
Yeah.
like not investing at all. It's all sales,
Right.
and you don't get any of the benefits of the long term, but you get all the benefits of the now cash. And so like
Right.
there's so much that can happen in real estate and how you use it. So I don't know how that fits into your theme or your book or
Yeah.
how
Well,
you talk through.
I guess my core thesis is what I'm trying to write is for people who maybe think that they're doing good with money, but are
Yeah,
not, or people who are just locked into, I guess, the traditional mindset of money, or who don't know anything about money. So I'm either capturing people who don't know anything about money or people who are locked in the traditional mindset, which is,
right.
you know, do really good, go to school, get a job, 401k, this, that, and the other.
Yeah,
There are so many problems with the traditional process. And I think those problems are even more exacerbated for my generation. Even just me coming up behind you 6 years after,
right.
6 years after you, life is totally different for me than it was for you. As far as
1,000%.
getting
Yeah,
a degree, getting a job, and I think that my generation is probably the highest at risk. People that are 30, I mean millennials. So you're
yeah.
technically in that boat also. Um,
Elder.
but they're the highest risk for being screwed by this because if we don't pivot to a
Yeah,
new financial system, we're going to be hosed. And
we
XGen
already
has
are
kind of already
hosed.
shown that that's the case. But
Yeah,
but really the thing is the only thing that screwed them was like it was still a good idea to get a degree for XGen. It was still a
yeah.
good idea to buy a house for XGen. It was still a good idea to invest in the
Hmm.
401k, at least for the first 20 years of their career. It's for the next 20 years of their career that it's not going to be a good idea for XGen.
Right. And they're kind of committed in and locked in.
Right.
Not fully, but that's
That's the
what they
thing is
know.
it's so hard to
Yeah,
extricate yourself from that system when you already have,
right.
let's say 250, 300 grand in a, a 401k system. It's locked
Holy
up,
crap.
man.
Can I tell you how freaking pissed I was trying to pull my stuff out of John
Yeah, no
Hancock
shit.
and
I know
Hancock?
exactly how pissed you were because
My
that
God.
was one of the things, one of the first things that I posted on Instagram when I finally decided to do this. Cause like when I found out about this, I already knew, and I don't know how I found out. I don't know how I found out. I don't know who told me. I don't know what happened. I think some of it was luck that
Yeah,
I attached myself. I saw things that I liked about brokerage accounts. I saw things that I liked about E Trade. I saw things that I appreciated about, some of these zero fee trading platforms.
right.
I had no clue. And at some point, I read a book that pointed out that all these financial management companies, Edward Jones, John Hancock, hell, JP Morgan Chase, that these
Hmm.
financial companies are just absolutely hosing people with fees. And when I read it, I was like, oh, that's crazy. I don't have my money in anything like that. I double checked all my stuff to make sure that I didn't have any money in anything like that. And I didn't. So I was like, okay, cool. But now, again, I started talking to people and even like fairly money savvy individuals, like
Yeah.
really people who know what they're doing. Um, and they were like, oh yeah, I just saw a video the other day of a guy who's he's a really successful, what was his name? I don't want to say his name because he's also kind of a jerk, and I don't want to support him. But super successful business guy in the construction industry.
Yeah.
Multi-million dollars. He's fairly famous. Um, and yeah, he was talking about he's been putting all of his money into an Edward Jones account, on AUM, and I'm like, dude,
Those
he's getting
guys,
hosed and he has
dude.
no idea. And
Well,
he's
and
a
what was
smart guy.
crazy, like, because I mean, I knew that it sucked, but it was like, hey, the like general mindset is, oh, back in the napkin math, like the company match makes it worth it. So like that's just
It
where you
almost
put your money.
doesn't.
And
Yeah.
so, you know, I knew that I didn't like John Hancock. I also had one with Vanguard from a different company, and I knew that
Yeah.
I didn't like that either. But I was like, you know what? I'm getting the company match. That's free money. Might as well put it in there. And then when I left those companies, it was like I looked into moving them, and it was like, this is like way complicated. I can just
Yeah.
leave it here. Okay, I'll leave it here. So I left the company that I had the Vanguard uh, 401k through in March of this year.
Yeah.
So I haven't put any money into that account since March. I haven't taken any money out of that account since March. I looked at my most recent uh like breakdown from them, and it's
Mm.
way at the bottom. There's a $55 monthly fee, and
Yeah.
there's only 6 grand in that account.
Yeah.
Like I didn't work for that company for more than like 9 months. And so
God.
it's like there's a $55 a month fee. And then like I finally call them and get through. They lock my account because I couldn't remember the day that I
Yeah.
started at the company. So I had to call them back again and figure out all that stuff. Weeks later, I finally get the time put together to dedicate 2.5 hours of my life to getting figured out how do I move this money. And they're like, oh yeah, we can absolutely send a check to your, E-Trade account. There is a $75 processing fee. Are you okay
Of
with
course
that?
there
And I was
is.
like, no, I'm not okay with that.
Yeah.
But do I have a choice? And the gal on the phone is like, no. If you
Oh,
if you want to take
I'd
this,
have bitched and moaned and
like
complained
you
to her about it.
you have to like do this fee. And then it's like what they also don't tell you, and they're super sneaky about, is that all of the money that I was putting into my 401k is Roth contributions. All
Yep.
the money that my employer is matching with is traditional contributions.
Uh-huh.
And so when you want to roll that over or take it out, you have to open different kinds of accounts, and you have to
Yep.
like they all have to match in order to do all this stuff. And then uh John Hancock,
Mm.
I was like, hey, I just want you to send a check. I'm going to pay the taxes. I don't care. Just send a check to E-Trade. And they're like, yeah, we don't do that. You have to create a new account with E-Trade that's called a rollover account,
Yeah.
and we'll send to that. And I'm like, why can't you just send to my normal IRA? And they're like, we just don't do that. You have to have a rollover account. So now I have to open a rollover account,
Right.
move the money, then work with E-Trade to transition the money from the rollover account to my actual Roth
Yeah.
in order to get the money in there. And it's just like, good God, people. And they charge a $75 fee when you move out,
Yeah.
or a $65 fee, whatever it is, on
Some
top of the
ridiculous
monthly charges
nonsense.
that they've been charging the whole time. While they've been doing like, I don't know, averaging 7 to 9% in my like accounts
Yeah. Well,
when
they're
the
making
market's
more than
doing
that with your
20.
money, right?
Oh, I know
They're
the
making more
market's
than that
doing
with
like
your money, but then
20
what
or
they're doing is,
22.
yeah, the S&P 500 is up like 26% this year, and you're
Right. And
invested
my
in this
Edward
in the
Jones,
500
yeah,
with them. And what they do is
yeah,
they take off the top in a different fee that is another subtext underneath there.
right.
They take
That
off
you
the
don't
top
see unless you
that you
read the
don't see,
fine print.
like
Yeah.
20 to 30% of your profits they take out.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
fucking mind blowing.
It is. It's
Like, it's
ridiculous.
so crazy.
It's
I did a
ridiculous.
session with a lady who was older. She's 60. She's retired. And I was just going over her accounts with her. She had $1 million
Hmm.
account that she's retiring on. She's living off this account. Um, and her financial advisory fees were over $100,000 a year.
It's ridiculous.
And of course she's sitting there thinking, okay, I've got $1 million account. This year I made 160 grand. That's great. I can live off that. But it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, but your financial advisor did absolutely nothing for you and took
And made
$100,000 off the top of your earnings.
$100,000. Yeah.
He did nothing for you.
What's crazy is that guy didn't make that much money either. Like the financial
This guy
advisor,
did. It depends
maybe
on the
he did,
financial
but like
advisor. Yeah,
I
he
feel like
definitely got
one
a
of the
commission
best
on it.
pieces
Yeah,
yeah, one of the best pieces of advice I ever got about money was like, don't take advice from people who are not doing better than you.
Yeah, yeah, for
And
sure.
they're like, so many financial advisors are like, yeah, I make 70 grand a year. I'm like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
well,
You
then I
definitely don't
don't
want to
want
talk to
to
those
listen to
people.
you.
But
Um,
at the same time, there's some of them that make a ton of money. Like one of the things that I tell people is like, hey, if your financial advisor regularly takes like once a quarter takes you out to a nice dinner, it's because he's making a shitload of money off of you.
right.
He's making so much money off of you that it's super worth it for him to do that. So
Hmm.
don't talk to people like that. It's ridiculous.
Right.
Like um
Well, and I think yeah, there's definitely people that are making that much money off of you. I think there's also room in the world for like finding somebody that's doing that well and
yeah,
being like, hey, teach me how, you know, or
there's
like,
so
hey,
few that mean yeah.
I want to be in that circle, or I want to, you know, run with that crowd. And so I think it's valuable to hire certain people like that
You
to
just
be
have to make
part
sure
of
that they're
like,
charging you a flat fee
right,
because there's
right,
plenty
a
of people who
thousand
will
percent,
do like what I'm doing. I don't consider it financial coaching or like the business that I've built. It's education.
right,
It's
right.
telling people what these things are. But man, there's so many financial education companies out there that
Anytime
are
somebody's
complete
talking about a
nightmares. Also,
percentage, watch it. Yeah.
so I'm trying to figure out what ways I can separate myself out before people have actually got into the content because I tell somebody that hey, your 401k that you've got at your company, they're stealing 30 to 40% of your money over the course of your investing career,
Hmm.
and they're doing it regularly. Nobody
Right.
believes me.
Right.
Like people don't even won't even go look. They're like, no, that's not happening to me. They won't even go look. And so I'm like,
Right.
how do I separate myself when all of the trusted institutions, the JP Morgan Chases, the Edward Jones, the bigger companies all have, I mean, I don't know, as bad as a reputation is for Wells Fargo, they still have, a couple $1 billion in assets under management. And it's like people refuse to stop using Wells Fargo, no matter how many times they defraud their customers publicly and
Right.
and and get prosecuted for it, and they just pay the fine, and people still give them their money.
Yeah. Yeah. I think people are, I think there's definitely a fear of doing something different.
Yeah,
It's like everybody's trying to keep up with the Joneses, especially when it comes to money, and especially when it comes to like, it's like there are definitely people that want a nice house in a nice neighborhood, not for what it does for their family, but because of what it says about their status, or, you know, like
right.
whatever else. And there's also people that are just like, everybody has a bank. Like that's just what you do. You just have a bank,
Mm,
and yeah, it sucks, but it sucks for everybody. So you know, I just do it, and I think there's value in what I'm trying to like get, because that's where I've been before.
uh-huh.
When you first started talking to me about crypto
Yeah,
years
yeah,
ago, right? I was like, whatever. Like people have to have dollars. That's just how the world
yeah,
works.
yeah,
Does it suck? Yeah, but it sucked for everybody, so it's a thing. Um, but where my mindset has shifted a little bit is like, if I can have an unfair advantage, like I want the unfair
for
advantage,
sure. Yeah.
right? Like,
When crypto
and
is only
so
a single piece of the puzzle, right?
yeah, but it's just an
It's
example of what I'm
definitely
trying to
one. It's
explain is like,
yeah. I definitely
um,
don't want to make myself, especially online, because there's so many crypto people online. I don't want to make myself the crypto guy,
no,
or be just another crypto guy. It's like it's not really about that. It
right,
That is one of the multiple um, unconventional monies that I recommend getting into. But mainly,
right,
what I want people to understand is unconventional money and understanding macroeconomics over the course of human history. How does it work? Because the thesis of my entire business and my book, and the reason I decided to start this, is that people don't know what money is,
right,
and they're just continuing on their life living it like dollars are money, but in reality
right,
that's not the case. And if they can wrap their head around that, then every decision that you make with your money, of course, you have to have dollars. You have to have something exchangeable. Like you gotta do business with people. You
Right.
gotta participate in the economy. I'm not a crazy person who thinks that you can just lever everything to the nines
Right.
and then X out of the
Well, maybe,
economy and X out of everything.
yeah, maybe that's how you write your real estate section of it then. It's like talking through like evaluating different kinds of real estate assets against what is money, right?
Right,
So is this single family home that I live in money? And is it a good kind of money, right?
right.
Not movable. It's not,
Yeah, it's
you
not
know,
mobile. It's not
like it's
portable.
not
It's not
spendable.
exchangeable.
There's all
It's
these
not.
things that it's not,
Yeah.
but there are these things that it is, right?
Right. Right.
Like it does shelter against inflation to have some of my dollars locked up in this place that I've got to have a roof. I've got to have somewhere to live, to raise my family and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So if I'm going to have that, I have choices. I can rent or I can own. Okay, well, which one of those is better? Um, one of them is actually a store of value. The other is buying a service from someone. So let's make that decision, right? Which one's better for your life?
Mm,
But then the other side of things is like, okay, now let's evaluate an apartment complex that you own and run. It's a business.
right.
So is it money, right? Maybe a little bit, right?
Mm.
It's potentially cash flow if you're doing it right, but it's not spendable necessarily.
A
You have
lot
to
of it
let
is
that,
not. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
you
how
have
much
to
money
let
do
it
you have
build the
to put in
business. And
for?
so,
Yeah. I think I was watching something, and I'm sure there's some people that are doing way better deals than this. But I was watching somewhere that the average door in real estate is like cash flowing like $150
right.
or something like that, where it's like how much you have to put down in order to get that door. And there's
Yeah.
so many people saying, "Oh, you don't have to put anything down," yada yada. It's like,
That
man,
that's
most of the
that's so
time,
crazy. That's so crazy too, though, because if you think about, you know, buying a condo
mhm,
that cash flows $150, you're going to put down 20% if you want to avoid PPI. Um, um, that's a ton of money down in order to get $150 in cash
yeah,
flow.
it's a
If you're
hundred
buying a
grand.
condo to cash flow, that doesn't make any freaking sense.
Yeah,
Now, if you're cash flowing $150 a door and you have a 100 unit apartment complex,
mhm.
now we're talking about a chunk of change, right? Like that's a much
But
higher
don't
dollar
don't you have
amount.
to put a commensurately larger amount down on a 150 unit apartment complex? I
It
mean,
depends on how you work it, right?
yeah,
So if you start with the condo, right?
uh,
So perfect example, my friend Travis, and I'm hoping to follow in his footsteps. But when
mhm,
he got married, they rented out his wife's house. She had a
mhm.
house, he had a house. So they rented out her house, they turned it into an Airbnb. They were cash flowing 3, 4 grand on it. Um,
Monthly?
when it was an Airbnb.
Okay, yeah,
Now
short term
they're
rental. That's a
probably
business.
because they it's a business, a
Yeah,
1000%. They get calls on every night and every weekend
for
because it's
sure.
being rented out. Luckily, it's across the street from their other house, so it's super easy for them to run over and take care of stuff and all that.
Mhm.
But they just sold it because they're like, we're sick of running a business.
Yeah,
So they 1031 exchanged the $350,000 of equity that they have in this house and put that 350 of equity that they can't really touch anyway because it was in the house,
right.
put it into a 9 unit apartment complex. That's a $2 million deal.
Yeah,
And now they've got 9 doors that cash flow whatever they cash flow, right? And he can force appreciation on that 9 unit. He can shelter that 350 from taxes. He can shelter that 350 from inflation because now he owns, a cash producing asset in Central Phoenix, which is a great part. Like
right, right,
so
right.
it ended up being a great deal for him. But like you're not going to go out on day one and drop 350 grand. What
Right,
actually happened is his wife put 20 grand down when she was in her 20s and bought the
right.
house, lived in it for several years. And then here we are 10, 15 years later. and that 20 grand now turned into a 9 unit apartment complex. And
Right.
so it can grow with you and it can be a super, super awesome thing. Um, so that's kind of the cool thing when you think about like $150 a door, like okay, whatever. But when you start multiplying that by 9 or 10, it's like, okay, now we're talking about a little bit of cash. And when you start multiplying it by 15 or 20, 30 or 40, like that's where real estate starts to really get exciting
Right.
because you can buy an asset that's got 30 or 40 doors. You can raise rent by $10 a door. And all of a sudden, you've increased the value of that property dramatically, and you can refi out of it
Hmm.
and do all kinds of fancy stuff. And so that's where real estate can get kind of exciting and cool. But for your target audience of people that like are starting to get into stuff or they're trying to figure
Yeah,
out their
there's just so
money,
many
like
better
it
options.
doesn't make a
Yeah.
whole lot of sense.
There's so many better options from, let's say, 0 to 500 grand.
Right,
Real estate just doesn't seem to be the play unless you want to eat ramen noodles and hot dogs for 5 years.
right.
Um,
I think you just have to look at it depending on your market, right?
right.
So when I bought a house,
Well, yeah.
um, I was paying, I don't know, in the ballpark of 11 or $1,200, maybe $1,300 a month for my apartment.
Hmm.
And when I bought the house, I had to put some cash down, but then my mortgage was less than my rent was.
Yeah.
And so I was like,
Yeah.
okay, now my monthly payment for my roof over my head is building equity for me. No brainer.
Hmm.
Um, I think for people starting out now, it may not be quite that
Well, the interest is just
clear, you
insane,
know.
and I don't know how far how.
Interest rates are up
Yeah.
now, yeah, but I mean your monthly payment in an apartment complex might be cheaper than your payment at a house, depending on where you want to live and how you want to do that,
Right.
So it's like maybe it is the right play to rent for a while, save up, and then do something,
Yeah.
or
It's important to look at all the options
roommate
though,
up or
and all the
something.
options
There's
at the
just
given
there's so many
time.
options.
When I
Oh
bought
yeah,
my house, I legitimately was looking at apartments, I was looking at condos, I
I
looked at
remember.
townhouses, I looked at living in a van. I was like, I'll just do
Yep,
the van life, man. Like, what if I get an RV and a truck and I'll pull the RV, then I can have my
yep.
motorcycle in the back. And I was like, no, I
I
can't do
still
that.
think you should have done that.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't have enjoyed it. So the main thing that I
No,
wouldn't have enjoyed about it is um, that I'm far too social to live the RV life. And I
right.
know that if I was in an RV, I would have had to be out of Arizona or at least out of Phoenix area for at
Right.
least 3 to 4 months out of the year.
And
And
you
I'm like,
lose
I'm not
that.
going to leave my friends and
Yeah, you
family for
lose
three
your
to four months
social.
out of the
Yeah.
year. That just sucks. So, but I looked at every single one of those options. And then I finally was like, the confluence of rising interest rates and falling. I bought my house in what year was it? 22, 23?
Something like that.
It was 22. It was early 2022. The
Hmm.
confluence of interest rates were starting to go up, prices had dove off a cliff,
Yep.
but interest rates were
You
still
also you
not up
also
dramatically. They weren't
right.
like 8 or 9% like where they went to.
You also bought way outside of like city
Yeah, I bought
center.
out of
Like
town.
you're out of town,
Hmm.
which is an option for people that are, starting out. And I think probably a good option. That's what our sister and her husband did initially was buy
Yeah.
outside of town, build some equity, build some income, move in town.
I don't know if I'll
Um,
move back in town. I don't know. Maybe. I just,
but it's so personal, right? It's
yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
personal.
I would love to. I would
And
love
I
to live in town, but prices are just so insane, and I can't see a.
and I think who you are as a person
Yeah,
matters. I think your stage of life matters.
yeah,
When I bought this house, I was planning on 2 years and I'm out. I was gonna every 2 years I was gonna flip, right?
yeah.
Because I was like, this is a model that could be good. I can avoid capital gains. I can level up
Right.
each 2 years. But then it was like I got 2 years into this house and I looked around and I was like, I love my neighbors. I love the house. Uh, Prices have gone up dramatically, so I gained a bunch of equity, but now I can't afford anything around me. So
Right.
I'd have to move way out of town. I don't want to sacrifice my community in order to do that. And so, I mean, now it's like almost 6 years later, I'm still in the same place,
Right.
way outgrown the house, but it's like it makes sense to stay financially, and so we stay. But see how much longer that lasts. I don't know.
Yeah, you don't think it's gonna last too much longer?
So we're just busting at the seams. We might
Yeah.
have to figure out a way to do something. So
Yeah, the only thing I don't like about my house is I want to be more engaged with more people, and I want to be
yeah,
going out on weeknights to hang out with people and like network and stuff like that. And
it's tough when you live out far.
it's tough. It's I live about an hour out of town,
Yeah.
and so that's rough. However, even if I was in town, I don't know that I could get a lot of people to come out networking with me. Like in the current environment, it's there's not a lot of people, at least not younger people, that are actually getting out and doing anything.
Yeah.
You know,
I think it's gonna come back. I think it's gonna come back.
I
I
hope
think
it
it's
does.
already starting.
Yeah, I hope it
I'm
does.
starting to see more like even when I do go out, I'm starting to see more like live music at coffee shops and like
Yeah.
it, COVID freaking ruined some people. But
Well, I mean,
we're
I think the
starting, I
interest
think, to
rates
come
ruin
back from
people.
that.
I think the vast majority of people
Yeah,
are
but
because
I think
they're definitely
like
COVID ruined people. Yeah.
younger people got so used to just living online and they're like, this is
Yeah.
cheaper, this is easier, this is better. And it's like, is it though? And I think people are starting to realize that it isn't.
Yeah.
People are starting to like been amazed to see people that are like, man, I miss going into the office. I'm like, what?
Yeah. I
Like,
hate that idea.
I
That sounds like hell.
miss seeing people. I get it. Like if you
I do miss
live
hanging out with
alone
people,
and
but
or
isn't that
yeah,
crazy that
yeah, it's
people
like,
want to go to the office to see people? That's
but
just,
that's 40 hours of your week. That's your life,
that's
you know?
true.
That's
Yeah.
where a lot of people find their friendships. That's where a lot of people find their community. That's where a lot of
Yeah.
people find their like purpose and stuff. And now they haven't had it for 3 years or whatever it's been. And it's like, that's struggling. So if you don't have something outside of work that's built up,
Yeah.
that is your network, your people, and your all that kind of stuff, it's like, what do I do?
Mm.
Stuff, find it, stuff, create it. Help me.
Anyway, we haven't even started on the questions.
We better get into it because I'm gonna have an angry baby that wants me to come hang out with her here in a bit.
Good deal. So why did you start your business?
I mean, I've always been a little entrepreneurial, even back like I think I was 12 or something, and I like, I was shoveling snow for people when it snowed. I'd get up early and go shovel snow, and I made official flyers and handed them out to the neighbors and
Yeah.
like started my first business, right? So I've always been a little entrepreneurial like that. At the time, about a little over a year ago, I freaking hated my job and had a good friend of mine that was like, hey, here's what I need. And I was like, I know how to do that. And he was like, well, I'm paying somebody way too much money to do it. How about I pay you instead? And I was
Yeah.
like, sweet. And so it actually started with a customer and then built from there. I was like, hey, if I can do this for you, I could probably do it for other people too. And all of a sudden, it was like I've kind of landed in this niche. I mean, I'm always looking for that kind of stuff, but it
Mm.
just happened to like stars align and work out. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So what is your niche, real quick, so people understand that?
Um, so it's changed a bunch, right? Like
Okay.
I feel like I thought it was helping real estate investors with their podcasts and social media and websites. Um, but then what I realized is that small businesses are small businesses and they need help from people that understand what the hell is going on. And um, and so having some type of like small business knowledge and having some type of like um, it worked out really well for real estate investors. I've been able to work with counselors. I've been able to work with financial guys. I've been able to work with martial arts groups, right?
Right,
Because
right.
like I understand each of those groups enough that I can be like, well, I actually understand your business. And so when you say, I need this event on my website, I don't have to ask you a bunch of questions about that because I already understand what the event is,
Mm-hmm.
right? And when you say, like, I need these articles on my website for the counselor in particular, it was like, yeah, I understand like basic modalities and stuff. Like I can go put some stuff together for you.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas what I've heard from a lot of small businesses is like, oh, I hired this media agency. They ended up outsourcing all of this stuff to VAs in the Philippines
Right.
that barely speak English. And every time I try to get a change order accomplished, it takes me 2 weeks and they don't like the communication's bad,
Right.
everything is jacked up. And so I just found this like niche where it's like I can help small businesses. Um, and so the niche is actually just small businesses, social media, websites, video, podcast editing, stuff like
Right.
that. So,
It's like a marketing agency, but uh, the cool thing about how you're doing it is you're like one of the only people in the entire space that's actually doing the work. Like,
right, which I'm trying to figure out because it doesn't scale. Like
yeah, yeah,
it's not a great model for scaling. The thing that makes me different is that like I'm actually the guy that's doing it for you. And so when I
hmm
have customers that are like, "Hey, I just recorded a real estate podcast," like I actually watch the podcast all the way through. And I actually like pick out the
right,
best like snippets and make those the thing. And I actually like know when somebody says something that's interesting to people that are going to listen to a real estate podcast
right,
because I spent a lot of time listening to real estate podcasts and I know what's interesting. And so instead of a VA going, I don't know, that sounded cool, it's me saying, oh, they just mentioned that they did this like kind of cool sub 2 thing with the interest rate. Like, that's
right.
freaking awesome. Like, I'm doing that soundbite. And so that's been the kind of cool thing that has set me apart there. And the same with martial arts groups, same with counseling, same with even, um, you know, other people that I've been able to help out. It's like I actually kind of understand what they're doing, and most of this has been friends or friends of friends so far as I've grown this, and so it's like people that I know and like and trust and
hmm
interact with, and so I can go in and be like, hey, I actually understand what you're doing in your business, and you're not just hiring some marketing agency and saying, hey, go build some like cool content. It's like, no, you're hiring somebody that knows your customer, probably
Right.
is your customer or was your customer, and I can actually, you know, help make some things that click for your industry.
Yeah, I would pay so much money for that. Um, just like for exactly what you just said. It's like you
The
are the
problem is
customer, you were the customer.
it's such a race to the bottom because everybody is trying to do this kind of stuff cheaper and faster.
Right.
And it's like that's great, but it takes freaking time
Yeah.
to do this well, you know? And it takes time to you know, build something that's actually going to work well.
Yeah.
Um, my first customer, I got into his website and there were links that didn't work. And I was like, this other agency's been running your website for like 4 years, and there's links on your main page that don't work.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? And he's like, yeah, I know. I've asked him to fix it like 10 times.
Yeah.
Um, I just started managing a website for a martial arts organization. I got into their website, and all their websites are named page one, page two, page three, page four on the back end of their website. And I'm like, that's so lazy. But like somebody
Yeah.
that you
Yeah.
paid a lot of money
Yeah.
just like slap something together, and because you don't know any better,
Right.
there's no SEO on the back end of it. There's no
Right.
organizational structure. Everything is just like slapped together and it shows and it doesn't work well. And
Right.
so I think just caring helps, but there's
Yeah.
so many people, especially small businesses that are starting out, are like, I mean, I can't spend 10 grand on my website. And it's like, well, if
Right.
you want it to
That's
be
what it
good, you
costs. Yeah.
need
Yeah.
to,
I've,
you
yeah,
know?
and I get it because I've also built stuff like that before, and I had I've actually run my own channel, and I
Mhm.
edit all the videos. I know how freaking long it takes. I
Right.
unfortunately don't have the money in the business yet to do it, to pay somebody else for it. But like as
And
soon as I
a
do, I'll
lot of
spend
people
a
don't.
ton of money on
It's
it.
like finding that sweet spot of people that like have done it enough to understand the value of it,
Right.
but also can afford to pay for it. Because there's people that understand the value that are like, listen, man, I just don't, I can't. Like, I'm either going to continue like limping along my social media account,
Right.
or I could pay you like $100 a month. I'm like,
Yeah.
you should just keep limping it along
I'm hoping
because
to offboard
I'm not
things
going to
like
do
piece by
anything.
piece.
Yeah,
And so
and I think
like,
that's the way to do it.
yeah, soon I'll probably be like, hey, can you do my thumbnails for me?
Right.
You know what I mean? Just the thumbnails. I just need 2 thumbnails a week. Like, and
Right.
then
And
once
I
I get
think that
scaled up
that's
more,
the
it's
way
like,
to do it.
yeah.
That's the way to do it. And that's honestly how I've done it with several other customers. It's like,
Hmm.
hey, can you do my podcast? Yeah, I'll do
Right.
your podcast. Boom, done. And they're like, hey, I like what you're doing with the podcast and it's been doing well. But I'm making all the like shorts. Could you do shorts too? I'm like, absolutely, I'll do
Yeah.
shorts, like throw an extra whatever, and put a package together for people. So I initially started like coming up with this whole like, here's the package and here's your options. And then it's like, nobody ever fit the package right because people
Right.
wanted to kind of like a la carte it. And so it's become a thing more where it's like, what do you need? I'll help you. We'll figure out a price. We'll make it work.
That
And
seems to
then I
be
can grow
always the
with you,
best way to sell
or
anything.
I can scale back with you too. Like I
Right.
have a customer that, is really scaling back. And so I've gone from, I mean, probably 1,500 or 2 grand worth of work a month for him down to like $100.
Yeah. Yeah.
He needs something real quick and I'll go knock it out. And so uh different customers can scale up or down and that's fine.
Yeah. 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 I think that's the easiest way to sell anything, even if
Yeah.
it is a package at the end of the day, is like,
Yeah.
what is it that you need? The
It's
like the
just
best way to do it,
it's
the best way
tough
to
to
do it
scale
is
that kind of
what do
a
you
la carte
need?
stuff.
And then when they tell you what you need, you match that with one of the packages that you have.
Right.
And you have maybe 3 or 4 packages.
Hmm.
Um, that seems to be the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Um, but can be a pain also. So, um, biggest early challenges.
um I think my biggest enemy is just me. I've got a lot of imposter syndrome and a lot of like, if I can't do this at like a super high level, I feel weird about charging for it.
Yeah,
And it's like, that's still my time, my energy, all of that. And what I've found is that confidence comes from reps. Like you just got to
yeah,
do it. You just got to get in, believe in it, go for it, and figure it out. And 9 times out of 10, I end up figuring it out and I end up doing it better than probably most, VAs would have done it anyway. And so it's like, why did I feel weird about charging for it?
yeah,
I should feel fine about it, but I definitely have that imposter syndrome. I definitely have that like I don't want to be bugging people and be pushy and I probably lost sales for that.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
uh, so yeah, my biggest thing that gets in the way is just me.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's funny because the things that you are good at that I am not good at, you are definitely better than most people. But it is weird when it comes to like art. But like you
Yeah,
just have an eye for graphic design that I don't have.
yeah.
And it's like no matter how much time I spend on it, you would be able to do it in 10 or 15 minutes and do better than me.
But I feel so weird about charging for that, and I'm working
Yeah.
on it and I'm getting over
Yeah.
it. But it's like I look at it from the perspective of like it took me 10 minutes to throw that together, but
Right.
I'm not thinking about the like
What you need to do is, yeah.
7,000 hours
Yeah.
that I've spent in the platform that made it so that I could do it in 10 minutes. And that's like
Right.
the thing that I have to remember, um,
The way that I value that
because it's
work,
tough.
the way that I value that work is how much time would it take you to do it? And let me
Right.
cut that in half for you.
Right.
And honestly, for me, just to come up with like a reasonably decent logo, because I don't know anything about graphic design, I could do
Yeah.
it, but it would take
Right.
me 24 hours. And if my time is worth, I don't know,
Right. And
$100 an
I'll have
hour,
it
two
to
hundred
you this
dollars an hour,
afternoon. Yep.
that's $2,000. So it's like, okay, $1,000 for you to make a really nice logo for me. I'm down, you know?
Right.
And I think a lot of people would be. Um,
Yeah. But it's also it's tough because Fiverr is a thing and you can go,
yeah, but
you know,
Fiverr sucks.
throw,
Anybody who's ever used Fiverr before knows that it sucks.
but there's also this like vibe from people where they're
Yeah,
like, oh, I could go to Fiverr and get this for two.
agreed.
Why would I pay
Agreed.
you a
Yeah.
thousand? It's like, well, go try it with Fiverr and see how it works. But
Yeah.
it's also like you have to let people fail like that and then be like, are you ready to do it now?
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
mean, that's,
that's a tough
yeah, do
thing.
it with Fiverr, do it with like log into your own Canva and put it together. See how long it takes. See
Right.
how much time you spend, how much energy you spend on it and the product and it comes out and it sucks. It's like
Right.
just pay somebody for the love of God. I that's for sure. When I was doing security, the problem was the same
Hmm.
because CEOs see it as an expense.
Right.
Um, and it's like, well, safety is an expense. Not only is it an expense, it's also a very inconvenient expense. Whenever you elect
Yeah.
the safer option, you're also electing the less convenient option. So it's like, I'm sorry, I have to pay you, $20,000 or $30,000 for something that's going to make my life less convenient. It's
Right.
very hard to sell security products to people.
Super. And it's I mean it's way different to sell social media and website design and stuff like that.
Hmm.
But people that are running their business are more concerned about counseling people with depression. They're more concerned about
Right,
like doing their actual business. And so they're like, time out. I gotta spend how much money just to
yeah.
like let people know I exist?
Yeah, should be
That
like
seems like a
50% of your. I
lot of
mean, yeah,
that's a lot of money. And people don't think through, especially like very new small businesses, don't
right,
think about, right, like I should be spending 30, 40, 50% of, what's coming in on repeating the process. Like I want to
right.
grow this thing and I need to shove money at what's going to make this grow. And so they're like, how do I minimize my expenses and maximize my, and they, when you start thinking about minimizing your expenses, you stop growing sometimes.
Yeah, well, you have to spend at I don't know. It depends on the business, obviously, but like at least
Right.
50% of your total expense ought to be on acquisition of new customers. That's my
Yeah,
opinion.
I don't know. It's got to be more than what most people want to spend.
Yeah, most
They
people don't want to
think in
spend
their
it.
mind like my goal is to make money, so I'm spending way too much, letting people know that I'm here. And it's like, well, if you don't let people know you're here, the money that you're making is going to go down.
For
So,
sure. Okay, real quick. So yeah, this is one that I definitely wanted your opinion on, but I see my biggest struggle in marketing my business is in separating it from the other things that are in the market or in the same space. I've had the same issue with multiple businesses that I've started, but with this one in particular, um, the reason I picked this one is because I recognized a failing in what other people were doing.
yeah,
Um, but my difficulty is how do I prove to people that I am different before they actually get into the, especially with how complicated what it is that I'm trying to explain to people is.
yeah.
How do I prove to people that what I'm talking about is different before they actually read the book? Because I mean, even when I was talking to you about it initially, I mean, it took you a
It
while
took me
to
a
see
long
what I
time
was
to
saying. Like
understand
part
and
of that's
see.
because I
Yeah.
don't explain shit very well, but um,
But I think that's like, so, um, my biggest win in my business has been referrals.
mm,
Me saying that I'm different counts for like one.
Yeah, nobody listens.
My customer saying I'm different is like 10.
Yeah,
And if they're a good customer, it's like 100,
yeah,
right? Like, so probably, I don't know, maybe 70% of my business has been from my first customer referring me to other
yeah,
people. And the other has been like friends and family. So, uh, I think that's how you do it is like, you gotta prove it to one person or two people, three people, and you just start there. And that referral, there's so much power there. And it's way more powerful than people think. Everybody wants to like put their shit on social media and like tell the world. It's like the world doesn't need to know. A person needs to know, and they need
yeah,
to tell two people, and those two people need to tell two people, and those two people, and all of a sudden you've got this like massive following of people that are like, holy shit, Austin helped me with my finances.
yeah,
Like, and it's, I don't know how to explain that he's different, but I'm telling you right now,
yeah,
the way that he's different is that I now save $500 a month, and I used to be in the hole $500 a month.
right.
And all of a sudden, it's a very personal, and it's not like, I don't know. I go back to like sometimes I look at um, the way that companies talk about what they do, and I'm like, that only makes sense to you. I have
Yeah,
no
yeah,
clue what you're talking about. But I just read a thing, a friend of mine that's a therapist, and he wrote his bio about like, the things that he does. And he's talking about the modalities and stuff. I'm like, that's interesting to me because I know some about that.
right,
But I'm imagining that people coming in to get therapy don't understand that you offer 7 different modalities. They just know that they're hurting and they need help,
right,
right? It's
right,
just like when you talk about what you do and what you are, well, you talk about it from a perspective of like, who you are and what you do and who you are. But that's the wrong perspective. What your customers need to know is what they get out of it,
right.
not how you're different, but how they're going to be different after,
Mm,
right? Like, because how you're different doesn't matter. You could
right,
be different.
right.
Great. How am I going to be different after I work with you? And that's the key. Um, and it's tough to explain that to people when it's just you. It's like, hey,
Right.
if you go through my coaching course or if you read my book, you are going to think about money differently. You're going to spend money differently. You're going to make money differently, and you're going to have more of it. I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
spitballing off the top of my head,
No,
but it's like,
it's
and
yeah.
here's this guy that has $500 a month
Right,
more
right,
extra.
right,
Here's this guy that completely took everything out of his 401k because it was costing him 30% of his money,
right, right.
whatever. Here's this guy, and it's like all of a sudden, when I'm talking to those people, it's like, holy cow, your net worth went up by $100,000 last year after you worked with Austin.
Yeah, yeah.
Sign me up, you
And
know.
shit like that is totally
Um,
possible. I had a client that
1,000%.
that lost made $60,000 a year. This is the first story in my book. I had a client that made $60,000 a year, lost 60 grand trading crypto, and on the phone I said, "You're gonna forget about this in 2 years.
Yeah,
60 grand is not that much money. You're gonna forget about this in 2 years." And 2 years later, that account had double the amount that it initially had in it,
120. Yeah,
and
yeah,
and it was like, how is that possible when you only make 60 grand a year to 2 years later have 120 in your account that was at zero 2 years
right.
ago? It's like, well, if you understand these principles and you understand how this works, it's it's truly like a break out of the matrix type situation.
Hmm.
It's like all of a sudden all of your brain is like, it's a complete rewiring of your brain. One of the issues that I've run into talking to people about it is that a lot of people are very stuck into their money principles that their dad taught them because it's like a religion,
Right.
and it's very hard
It
to break
it's
people away from that.
well, and it's kind of like a religion in that it's kind of like sex in other ways. It's people like are interested in it, but they don't want to talk about it with other people.
That's for sure going to be a clip that we put on Instagram.
Because
Nobody wants to talk about it.
but
Yeah, no, I get what you're talking about, though. Nobody wants to talk about it. They're embarrassed by their
it's
financial
like
situation.
it's like mind blowing to me. I was talking to a friend last night who was like, "Yeah, I'm looking for a new job," and I was like, "Why?" He's like, "Well, I was working as a sales rep for this organization, and well," and he like got weird about it. He's like, "We're all friends. I'll just say it. My pay was 120 grand, and it just dropped to 70 because we lost a massive customer." And
Yeah,
I'm like, the fact that people are afraid to say what they make
it's insane.
and
Yeah,
don't talk about what they, and it's like, holy cow, do you know how much stuff you can learn by looking at someone else's personal financial statement and just
for
talking
sure.
about it?
Yeah,
Like mind-blowing things
yeah,
change. I
it's
joined a
crazy.
mastermind about a year ago, and we get together and put together our personal financial
Yeah,
statements. And I'm like, I'm looking at like in-depth personal financial statements of other people and going, Holy cow, I could be doing that. Like, you're not that different than me, but I completely missed doing that piece. Or
right,
like, I
right.
didn't even think about saving that kind of thing. And all of a sudden, it's like, well, shoot, I could fix that problem tomorrow,
Yeah,
and I'll be way better set up for, years from now. But people are like weird about talking about money. They're weird about talking about what they've got saved or where they've got
yeah.
saved. I mean, we're freaking family. And I think, last time we hung out was some of the first times that we like put real dollar amounts
It was
in what we were
revealing. It was
talking
a
about,
revealing
because
time.
it was like, oh dang, like rather than just saying like, oh yeah, I've done really well in crypto, or hey, like
Right,
my
right, right,
retirement is not doing great. It's like, no, it's 450 or it's 100,000 or
right,
and it's like all of a sudden that's a different thing when you put real numbers
right.
on the spreadsheet and you actually talk about them. It's like, hmm,
Yeah.
that's kind of interesting.
So
You learn
the
quite a
main
bit.
thing that I didn't tell people about, or the reason I didn't really like, I've been telling people, yeah, I'm doing really good in crypto. Like I'm making a ton of money, and people are like, oh, that's great for you. And like the
Yeah,
reason I didn't tell people is because I thought that it was known. Like I thought these things were known. I thought
right.
that people knew
It's
that
not.
401ks were screwing them. I thought that people knew that IRAs were terrible. I've been down this rabbit hole for so long, but then things started escaping my mouth that people started looking at me funny.
Yeah,
And I would say things like, like what, like 10 grand, guys, I could find 10 grand in my sofa cushions.
right.
And people would look at me like, you could find 10 grand in your, that's not normal. And I was like, really?
Yeah,
It seems like it's normal to me. Like, not actually my sofa cushions, but what I meant is like the way that I run my money is like
you
it's
make it
out
make it
there
shift
and
around. Yeah,
it's not that hard to at any given time come up with the money that you need if you understand how it works. You can go make,
right.
if you know how to make money, it's not that hard to make 10 grand in a month. um
Yeah,
it's not that hard to make these moves, but you have to understand the basics. And I think the problem that I see with most people that are teaching this stuff is they start in the middle. They
yeah,
start with, hey, let me teach you about real estate. It's like, no, y'all don't even understand what money is.
right.
So anyway, so we're coming up on time and I want to be respectful of your family and stuff, but yeah, essentially the thing that I'm trying to get to is like, okay, let's go back to like the development of humans in like the beginning of time, Mesopotamia and Egypt, and like this is how
Mm-hmm.
money came to be. And like
Yeah,
let's track through the history of humanity how money has progressed over time, because you really have to understand those things before you can land
right,
on, okay, what do I do with my dollars? Because
right,
the dollar is a technology that was built on top of a preceding technology that was built on top of a preceding technology that goes all the way back. And if you don't
right.
understand all of these different levels, then you end up in the system being massively controlled by all of the middlemen. And that's the thing that I'm hoping to help people get out of. Small business is one of those things that I'm hoping I can drum up some more of, get you more business, get
Mm-hmm.
other people into starting their businesses, because it removes middlemen. And if you can
Yeah.
do a little bit of work on the side, and you can do a thing that allows you to remove middlemen rather than add 25 more in there, or become one yourself, because God knows we don't need any more of them. It's like figure out a way to actually be productive in society and to create things that other people don't know how to create.
Yeah.
That's money. And when you can get that,
Right.
then it's like all bets are off at that point. So
Yeah.
that's where we'll call it. And I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, for sure. It's fun.